Loona was having one of those mornings, the kind that started with Blitzo screaming across the office because someone, Stolas, texted him too many feather emojis at 6 a.m. Her nails tapped against the IMP reception desk like a snare drum being slowly tortured, her ears twitching every time someone coughed, sneezed, or so much as blinked too loud in her direction. Being the receptionist for a company called Immediate Murder Professionals wasn't exactly a dream gig, but it beat being alone. Blitzo, in all his chaotic, clingy, gloriously annoying way, had adopted her. She had a place here, even if most days she wanted to throw the phone at Moxie's face just for breathing. Loona was the gatekeeper to Hell's most ridiculous hit squad. Yet underneath her snark and brutal sarcasm, she held a weight most couldn't see. When she wasn't booking revenge assassinations or rolling her eyes into a coma, Loona had another, secret job, defending Earth. No one on the team knew, not even Blitzo. Every month, the Earth filled with a strange energy. Portals leaked between realms. She'd wake up with her claws glowing, pulled toward some disaster site in the human world where shadows twisted the sky and whispers breathed through trees. She didn't ask for the power, but it chose her. And today, the pull was stronger than ever. The portal opened in a storm drain under Chicago. The team had been called in to handle a demonling infestation crawling up into the human world through a back door someone left open, probably that lazy bastard Vortex. Loona didn't complain. She wanted to go topside this time. The pull was gnawing in her ribs. Stolas gave them coordinates through the grimoire. Moxie muttered something about soul-eating larvae. Millie cackled with joy, already sharpening her knives. Blitzo just complained about traffic on the spiritual highway. But Loona was quiet. Her hackles rose before they even crossed into the human plane. Something was different here. The team hit ground in an abandoned parking garage lit only by flickering lights and a rusted old gas station sign swaying in the wind. A thick scent of iron and ozone clung to everything like tar. That's when Loona saw it. A swirl of corrupted magic, almost invisible to mortal eyes, writhed behind a collapsed vending machine. But the real shock was what she saw next. A tiny human man, no taller than a finger, cornered by two low-tier hellspawn with barbed tongues and eyes like rotten tomatoes. The man screamed, but only she heard it. The moment her glowing crimson eyes locked onto the tiny man, the world around her slowed down, like her instincts kicked in before her brain could. She knew this sensation. But this time, it wasn't magic or adrenaline. It was personal. The fragile human man stood no taller than 3 inches. But his presence was something her senses could barely process. It felt familiar, it made her moisten down there, it made her chest flutter. He was cornered between a rusted soda machine and the cracked wall of the garage, with 2 low-class hellspawn lurching closer. They were malformed. Their skin sagged, eyes twitching in and out of phase with reality. Their forked tongues scraped along the concrete as they crawled toward him, screeching in a frequency only the damned could enjoy. In a single bound, Loona crossed the garage and drove her claws into the first demon skull. It burst like a watermelon under pressure, spraying ichor across the vending machine. The second creature barely had time to react before she turned and shredded it with a snarl, her tail whipping it across the wall so hard the plaster shattered. Silence followed. Only the buzzing of a broken fluorescent light remained. The tiny man blinked up at her, paralyzed. His hair was covered in dust. He was trembling. He looked up at her as if seeing a goddess descend from the sky. Then, something strange passed between them. Recognition. He stepped toward her, breathing in awe and disbelief, and his lips parted as if he wanted to say something. That's when the others started to approach. Moxie yelling something about keeping the perimeter clear, while Blitzo raided a nearby snack shelf with his tail wagging. Loona had seconds. She looked back at the tiny man and whispered, almost instinctively, "You'll be safe." She bent down, parted her jaws wide, and extended her tongue gently. He didn't hesitate to get inside. With trembling steps, he climbed into her open mouth. The first sensation was warmth. Her mouth tasted of cherry soda that she had drank earlier in the day. The roof of her mouth arched overhead, her fangs curving down like ivory monoliths. The space was humid, alive, and muffled. Each of her breaths was a tremor beneath his feet. Loona pressed her tongue upward slightly, nudging him gently into the curve of her cheek. There, tucked safely between her molars and soft inner lining, he nestled into the plush, almost pillow-like flesh. Her tongue adjusted his position, carefully balancing him so he wouldn't slip down her throat. She could feel his tiny heartbeat fluttering. His little hands braced against her gums. He weighed almost nothing, yet the sensation of him there was grounding. It was pleasurably intimate in a way that bypassed thought and dropped straight into instinct. Inside her, Ryan, though she didn't yet know his name, tried to steady his thoughts. It should have been terrifying, he reasoned. He was inside the mouth of a predator, surrounded by sharp teeth bigger than his entire body, and a throat that flexed with every swallow just a few inches from him. And yet, he felt peace. She breathed deeply as her stomach growled with love that made his chest feel warm. He reached out and pressed his hand softly to the curve of her tongue. He loved the firm, wet, powerful feeling of her tongue. He smiled as he thought how this was the safest he had ever felt. Loona straightened and turned just as Blitzo passed by, too busy fighting with a broken candy machine to notice anything unusual. "You good loons," he called, wrestling a Snickers bar that refused to fall. Loona grunted, careful not to open her mouth too wide. "Fine. Just checking for more hell spawn." If he heard the slight shift in her voice, he didn't show it. She moved away from the others, her expression cool and disinterested as always, but inside, her thoughts were racing 1,000,000 miles an hour. What the hell had she just done? Why was she enjoying this sensation so much? Why did her body know how to hold him? Why did it feel right? She couldn't help but let her thoughts lean towards a more erotic side of herself. Loona crossed her legs, rubbing the inside of her thighs against her groin as she drifted into fantasy. She stepped into a shadowed corner of the garage and sat against the wall, quietly running her fingers along her cheek, tracing the spot where he now lay inside her. Then slowly she moved her fingers lower and lower until she hit the spot. She closed her eyes as she finished her fantasy. She needed this. She needed him. She could still feel him, breathing and moving around inside of her. It felt so good. And he wasn't scared. If anything, he seemed content, like a missing puzzle piece had finally been placed. She didn't know who he was yet, or how he ended up like this, but one thing she did know, whatever this strange bond was, it was immensely pleasurable and everything she wanted. And it was far from over. The team returned home, mission declared a success. Loona disappeared into her quarters before anyone could ask why she was chewing gum suddenly. She wasn't. She closed the door, lay back on her bed, and opened her mouth slightly. With gentle care, she nudged the tiny man into her palm. He sat there, drenched but smiling, like someone who just cheated death and was in love with his rescuer. "What's your name?" she asked. He looked up, awed. "You don't remember me?" he asked. It's me, Ryan." The name hit her like a gut punch. Ryan. She dreamed about that name. Since she was 14. Dreams where she was always protecting something small and bright. A boy named Ryan who was always about to fall into darkness, and always, she saved him. "I've waited years for you," he said. "You're my guardian." Ryan explained the truth. The portals weren't random. They were fractures. The earth was unraveling between dimensions because the ancient seals had been broken. And in every timeline, there was only one who could contain the collapse. Loona. She was chosen by something older than hell. Her full size, her power, all of it wasn't normal, not even by hell standards. She was born a guardian, and Ryan was her anchor. A soul reincarnated again and again to guide her back to herself when she forgot. A soul that had once saved her, long ago. But the last time, he died. And this time, he was reborn small, as if the universe was forcing him to be protected instead. "You're not just a protector of Earth," he said. "You're its final wall." The final fracture opened that night. You always find him, no matter the world. Blitzo found her standing at the edge of the portal. For once, he didn't speak. He just stood there and watched her walk into the storm. The final enemy wasn't a demon. It was the absence of existence itself. A void being that devoured memory and meaning. It coiled across the sky like smoke, erasing everything it touched. Loona's body surged, towering now, too massive for any one plane. A true giantess. Her fur shimmered with power, her claws carving sigils into the very sky. But her strength wasn't enough. Inside her mouth, Ryan gripped her tongue and whispered ancient words he somehow knew. Words that ignited the wards in her throat, along her gums, into her blood. He was her spell. And when she roared, the sky cracked. Her howl swallowed the void. Back in hell, no one spoke of the fracture. Blitzo just patted her on the back once and gave her a weird, too long wink. Millie and Moxie didn't even ask what happened. Loona returned to her room. Ryan lived in her mouth now. Not all the time, but often. She carried him with her when she worked, when she fought, even when she slept. Sometimes he dozed curled in her cheek, or leaned against a fawn. They could talk in a heartbeat language that only they understood. And he loved it there. It felt warm and safe, and she was powerful. It was everything he wanted in a guardian. The way her tongue curled around him when she laughed, or how she held him in place with a breath, it was like nothing he ever imagined. Loona, despite her sarcasm and fire, was gentle with him. She had found her purpose, and he lived in that purpose, literally. No one knew what really happened during that mission. Not even Blitzo, and he was usually all up in everyone's business. But deep in Hell's least tidy office, a girl with blood-red eyes and celestial power tapped at her keyboard with a tiny smile. Inside her cheek, a small man held on to one of her molars and whispered a joke into the beat of her heart. And Loona would laugh the happiest laugh. The mission was over. The team would call it a success. But Loona knew the truth. This tiny human in her mouth, this unspoken connection, this was the real beginning. This wasn't just a love story, this was a reunion that spanned across many worlds and lifetimes.